Well, hello, and welcome again to another edition of Spincast here at Stay Plugged In. Joining us from the state of Pennsylvania, we have THERESA GAFFNEY. She is the head coach and coordinator of esports at Messiah College. Hello, how are you doing today, THERESA?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on, Rick.
Yeah, we appreciate you being here, sincerely. Hopefully we can get some additional good information out to our audience in respect to Messiah College and esports in general. But let's start off with, if you would, just tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, how you kind of got into the esports world in general, and how that led you to the opportunity, obviously, at Messiah College as their coordinator of esports.
Sure. For the brief TLDR, I started in Collegiate Esports in 2011, pretty early on in the first organization in North America doing Collegiate Esports, Collegiate Star League. So I was a writer, writing about StarCraft, just covering the matches and the scene in general. And I kind of climbed up from there. I was volunteering and I liked what I was doing. So they needed an editor, so I started doing editing and kind of more coordinating level stuff. They brought on other games like League of Legends and started growing. And, over time, it just became something that while I was doing my real life things like education, working, and so on and so forth, this became an outlet that I really saw myself enjoying, both personally and professionally. So I taught for a year in Korea. And I got an offer to come back and work on it full time. So I worked with CSL for a couple of years full time. Then I took an opportunity at Harrisburg University for a part of their team as it started up, and was doing social media, starting their channels, excuse me. And, from there I started freelancing after that ended. And now I'm at Messiah College as their esports coach. So I think it's kind of been a cool progression of mostly only a collegiate esports career.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Now, that's interesting, 2011. So believe it or not, that probably makes you one of the veterans in this industry, considering it's relatively newer space in general, especially at the collegiate level. Obviously, esports and gaming has been around for an incredibly long time, but at the collegiate level, more new, if you will. So talk a little bit about that. I'd be interested to know 2011, 2020. Dramatic amounts of changes. What have you seen for the better in that time frame?
So when we started, and CSL started in 2009, so I was like a year and a half or 2 years after that, so they had 2 seasons under their belt. But when they started, I know there were only about like 20 teams, and some of them were, the MITs, the Rutgers, the UCLAs, the bigger name schools, or the more quote unquote nerdy schools that you would expect that would be playing StarCraft Brood War at that time. But since then, it's exploded from 20 schools to hundreds of schools. So just sheer numbers alone, a staggering change. And then, not just the approach to the industry is completely different. When I started, people ask me, why are you doing collegiate esports? Like, why wouldn't you be doing something on the professional level, putting your time in? Because a lot of times in the era of 2010, 11, 12, people were very much still doing this for a passion project. And a lot of us were just giving our time to whatever we wanted. So I voluntarily gave my time to a collegiate organization, which to some people made no sense. I could have been volunteering to write at other bigger names and maybe done something more after that, but I didn't see it that way. I was a education student and I became a teacher, and I come from teaching, and I've worked in in that kind of field for so long that it felt natural to work in esports relating to that. So it's changed because the attitude towards it has changed. I don't get those questions anymore. They're kind of like, oh, that's cool, awesome. You're supporting students. So that's some of it. There's other more, integral changes where how esports is seen on campus has changed, but that's an overall personal level change.
No doubt, it's grown by leaps and bounds, and being part of that journey to see those changes must be pretty interesting. Let's talk about that on campus at Messiah College, based on how long you've been there from the beginning to where it is today, and what your expectations is as we move into next year and beyond. Because I'm hearing that it's exponential growth as well, very similar to the path of collegiate sports, esports.
Yeah, so I just started believe it or not, I just started in November at Messiah, kind of mid-season. They were looking technically mid-season because most people are starting in August to, get their programs together.
Hmm.
So we had a very quick season with the
Yep.
COVID-19 thing kind of cutting us off a bit,
Hmm.
but it was good because what we did was just start right off the bat and find people on campus willing to play at a varsity level and just hitting the paint and doing the job. We
Nice.
already played a tournament that placed us fourth in the state in League of Legends. And Pennsylvania, believe it or not, has a lot of schools playing and a lot of varsity schools now. So that was an awesome thing that I was very proud of. And I think we're going to do even better next year. So this is helpful because, we do have other partners, people who have invested in the program, donors to the school, and
Hmm.
they definitely want this to succeed. So like you said, they see exponential growth, and so do I. So I think, we have 4 teams right now. I expect that to, sustain, but maybe add more with time.
Hmm.
And definitely, we'll be able to do more on-campus events, and we've done some online events that have been successful. So I think, the future is ours, and it's very student-led, even though it's a varsity, program, because I come from a volunteer slash student-led perspective. Back in the early collegiate days, most programs, there were no official programs until 2015 anyway. So before that, it was all student-led organizations.
Hmm.
So I let the students, dream, and if there are dreams that can happen, we put it out there. So I expect that to be the next few years for Messiah.
Awesome. Talk a little bit about those 4 teams. What titles do you folks play? What are some of your most competitive teams? Sounds like League of Legends does pretty well. And for those in the audience that may not know, yeah, Pennsylvania by far. I would say California probably has a ton of esports teams, but Pennsylvania has so many collegiate schools that offer esports. It's amazing. But go ahead, talk a little bit about those teams.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I was surprised because I'm from New York, and New York has barely anything compared
Right.
to Pennsylvania. So the proud New York City girl is kind of a shame. But I love the fact that life took me here, and I was able to jump in and work both at Messiah and Harrisburg when these things were starting. So it's been great. But the games we play right now are Rocket League, League of Legends, Overwatch, and Hearthstone. That's a main reason is a lot of schools don't like to support games like CSGO and games with guns, let's just put it that way, because of
Right.
the current atmosphere.
Hmm.
But I'm okay with the 4 titles we have. I love them, so I'm not complaining.
Understood. Understood. And there's plenty of interest in those titles from what I've seen from college to campus. So,
Yeah.
um, if you will, talk a little bit about growth-wise, what type of support you get administratively. Sounds like obviously you've got donors and things like that, but I think as campuses see esports grow, it's typically run by someone like yourself, but also getting that administrative support on top of that as well. Would you agree?
Yeah, there's so technically I am that student. I am also a student, by the way. I study mental health counseling there.
Hmm.
So in a way I'm like a student that's doing this for a stipend, but I'm still an employee of the college, and I am the head of my department. So I'm that person between the students and the higher ups. There is a director of student life. Basically, he's the dean of the school who's heavily involved with this program and started it before I was there. So I would say he's the next up.
Hmm.
And then the president of the school is so just like supportive of everything we do. And she's been so happy with what we've done so far that I've seen no like restrictions. So those are the 2 others. The president herself is really into this, and her daughter actually was the one to tell her you need an esports program, and which was awesome. I love
Yeah.
hearing that. And
Yep.
then the dean and myself.
Awesome. Awesome. It's good to hear that. Obviously, when you have that support, then the sky is the limit, technically. Talk a little bit about, if you will, you mentioned a number of the functions are student-led or student-driven. And I like that from an esports perspective. If I have my son or daughter there, the fact that not only can they socialize and game and compete, but they're probably involved in a variety of other functions outside of that, that's pretty good for their resume. So talk about some of the other outside functions, if you will, that the students help with within the esports program.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about that because I'm passionate about making this program not just a service to, your entertainment or your right now, but a service for your future. We have students who have walked in with interest in streaming, for instance, and they're playing on the Overwatch team, but they also have this great setup and this great idea of what they can do with our stream. So, I just said, go for it. I've seen it myself, I've done it myself, but why have me do it while I can watch them, what they're doing, and see what they have on their, skill sets, and we work with that. So we probably wouldn't have a Twitch channel if it wasn't for the people that have volunteered their time within the program to do that, because as one person, I can only do so much too. So that we've had students flex their streaming skills. We also have an on-campus broadcast, sports broadcasting major technically. So there's been talks to see where we can link those two up for the future. So for me, to see students come in with an interest and then have another program on the side to maybe bridge in the future is that like 4D chess that I'm thinking in my head, that maybe the future can look like that for Messiah students. But otherwise, we have event planning. We weren't able to execute it because we were taken off campus, but by next year it will launch. We had students in committees planning our year-end event. So, I'm not like busybodying them and telling them what to do. They're devising what they can do, and they're saying, oh, this sounds like a good platform to do tournament administration on. This is what we have to do to get lights and sounds and stage done. So, this is like their way of learning how things are done in a smaller form in this industry, and see and explore and use it like putty to see if they want to continue.
Sure. No, that's awesome. I think that just allows them to kind of bridge into, hey, what do I like creatively as they move forward in their careers and so forth. So talk a little bit about, so I'm a freshman coming on campus for the first time. I'm now part of the Messiah College program for esports. What's my day-to-day like from a expectation with practices, et cetera, expectation academically and so forth? What's that look like for me?
Yeah, so we have expectations for all esports players. We have a minimum GPA average. It's about 2.5 minimum. So if you dip below that, you'll be in like some watch at least. So just minimal. Make sure you get your job done as a student. You can't just come to the esports space and play all day. So besides that, you would expect to be doing at least 5 to 8 hours of minimal practice / meetings with the team. So that would include each game meets with me once a week. We meet at least an hour. Then you have some line training through Gamer Sensei. Essentially, there's someone that pops in who's like really high level and helps guide them through the mechanics. And then you have scrims. So you have at least two scrims a week we aim for, and that can take upwards to 3 hours depending on, how long it goes. Some games are shorter, some games are longer. So yeah, that's about 5 to 8 hours of a basic commitment. And obviously, you should be playing if you can on the side. It's not like, you drop that. If you are in your home and you can grind the ladder, you should still do that. So that's the basics. It's hard to balance because some of these students are also, in clubs where we have a couple of track team members. So, they're highly committed then.
Yeah, understood. That's fantastic. If you were to look at a crystal ball kind of flash forwarding 5 years from now, 6 years from now, how would you like to see Messiah different? What changes would you like to implement within your community for esports?
So I think we're kind of on the way. So the concept of esports as a pathway to economic opportunities through, jobs is definitely what I want to build the program out to. So not just have the team, but have a bigger program around it that goes into our majors. So I'm not suggesting building an esports major because I still have a lot of reservations when it comes to those. I don't know if I agree totally with the approaches that are being taken academically into those. I think it's still too new. I think students are better serviced by having traditional majors that have concentrations with esports for now. So yeah, that's what I'm hoping. I kind of mentioned that with our sports broadcasting side. I would like to do streaming with an esports concentration in the future there. And, we have media studies, communications, that could be, esports fixated too. You can kind of like take that major and get some classes built around that. But I don't want to do like a major esports thing
Right.
until I feel like that's the industry is bigger. And I think for now that's going to be my 5-year trajectory, trying to feed this program into other programs on campus and really giving a high quality education.
Awesome. Yeah, the space is so new and it's ever evolving, literally month to month. So, understood on the academic criteria portion of trying to put that type of curriculum together. Um, Anything that you would change, not necessarily at Messiah, but at the collegiate level, the landscape of esports in general? Is there anything there that you look at and says, man, I wish this was a little different? And if so, what would that be?
Yeah, there's no real magic wand at this moment for this problem, but we obviously have several tournament administrators. We have several, cooks in the broth, I guess,
In
whatever
the
you call
kitchen?
it at this point. You have cooks in the kitchen. Yes, my English is quite off today, but yeah, I think that there are too many people talking and trying to move the field in a direction that's also keeping it kind of stagnated at the moment. So I hope that we have more unification down the line. I don't necessarily know if something like an NCAA is a solution to this, honestly, but I just want more oversight that's in union with each other. So like I think it's impossible right now with game developers heading their collegiate
Yes.
outfits, and it's almost like at war with each other. But
Hmm.
you can't do that without an overarching sort of like organization taking hold of like the reins and saying you could do it during this time and this time. So I don't think there's a nice and neat solution to this, but it would be great if there were, and it would be great if people talking about how to solve these scheduling conflicts, these attitude conflicts that would come down the line, if that could be solved somehow. And also getting more girls involved in gaming and on the varsity level. I see plenty, but just not enough. So definitely trying to bridge that community more. Getting more females involved would be great.
Yeah, understood. Two things. Obviously, on the governing body aspect of it, yeah, I agree. I think anytime, especially in this space that is large as it is and only going to grow exponentially, I think at some point someone needs to step in and say, hey, we've all got to be consistent on how we go about our processes. In respect to the getting more girls in gaming, yeah, couldn't agree more. I've got a youngest is my daughter who's going to be a freshman in high school. So I love podcasts like this because she's able to watch it and see someone that looks like her and say, hey, I can do what she does. And I think that's critically important in this space, not necessarily just from the gaming aspect and the things that that can provide, but obviously as a career path, some of the things that you get from this industry that certainly I think are going to be well in abundance out there in terms of opportunities. So certainly taking advantage of that for anybody certainly would be important. Um, Last question is, as we're going to come up on time here a little bit, again, our audience is going to be predominantly middle school, high school, and parents. If you could give them advice in respect to, hey, this is what gaming is, this is what esports is, this is what we offer at Messiah College in general, what would be some words of wisdom, if you would, for our audience?
So if you love esports and you think it's a good use of your time, you should kind of show that off by pursuing an avenue that you can develop your professional skills in as well. So I would say Messiah offers the ability to be a competitive player in a way that's kind of like a professional skill. So you can put that on your resume. But if you want to also develop industry skills, you can do that here by playing in this kind of like sandbox environment where we are really looking to lean on your skills because this is such a new field that
Hmm.
we all bring new skills to it. We want to grow together. So what I'm saying is that this program is not closed off. So you're not siphoned off from the developments and the progress that it takes. So Messiah is going to give you a lot to work with in terms of a future professional. If you want to see something happen and you're passionate about it and I hear it and it sounds like a good idea and the president hears it or the dean hears it, we're probably going to support that. And I think that, this is a great place to do it. I don't want to be siphoned off from the student body. A lot of people feel like that in, varsity programs. They often just represent the school, but they don't interact with the student body. That's not us. We have an esports lounge. That means that like anybody can come in and play Smash with anybody. So
Hmm.
we are very integrated. So if you want an integrated esports environment, come here. That's what we offer. And, I'm very, frank about, your opportunities. And if I think it's great, I'll definitely try to help you get what you want out of it. So really, it's great. I think that we're doing something different than other colleges by at least taking that perspective.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I know as a parent, having my child be able to kind of spread their wings a little bit and come up with ideas and be able to bring that to, their supportive staff in respect to, hey, this is what I have. What do you think? And get that support to be able to do that is not available in a lot of institutions, but to have that availability there, I think is critical just from a critical thinking perspective even. So really appreciate you coming on board today to talk a little bit about Messiah College. Obviously, with your experience, you've seen so much growth in this industry and certainly some changes. Hopefully, we'll continue to see that for the better as we continue to grow in this space, and would love to chat again maybe in the fall, kind of see how things, hopefully we're a little bit back to normal by then.
I hope
Kind of
so.
see, yeah, you and me both. Kind of just touch base, see how things are going on your end, and kind of go from there. So again, sincerely appreciate it. Have a great weekend. Stay safe. And thank you so much for being on Stay Plugged In.
Thanks, Rick.